Let's talk about something you guys already know. And that's if you play too many notes with distortion, it sounds like complete trash. And conversely, if you play stuff that's all power chord based or, all perfect intervals on an acoustic guitar or classical guitar, it sounds equally bad. So the point I'm making is that there's a direct correlation between the parts that we choose, the arrangements of tunes, and the tone of your actual guitar, the actual tone. Distortion equals note bleed, right? That's a real thing. I can't explain it. Hopefully someone really smart like Rick Beato or Adam Neely see this video and come on and make something with some cool graphs and things shaking. Please do that, guys. I would love to see that. But the truth is that if you're a gigging musician, especially if you're in cover bands or you're covering tunes or you're thinking of new arrangements, your studio, you're not solely playing classical, or you're not solely playing, extreme death metal, you're somewhere in the middle. And you're going to have different piece bands. You might be in a power trio, you might be in a 6-piece band, you might be in a 10-piece band. And when you're picking your parts, you should be making conscious decisions on whether your voicings are audible in that tonal environment. I know it might seem obvious, but it's very easy for beginner and intermediate players that don't have a lot of experience playing with a lot of different style bands and genres to just look at a progression and learn a song and be like, oh, that's A, G, and D. And no matter what the rest of the band is doing, just play your big A, G, and D, right? And you'll find that players that have a lot of experience, that have played in a bunch of different kinds of bands, that have done especially studio work, where you're really hearing if your parts mix with other parts, that the more distortion, the more gain, the more saturation that you use, the bigger the band you're in, the less notes you can play. And also, the certain types of intervals, the less, say, major thirds and roots you can play. If anything, you start omitting the notes that are closer in intervals together. And you start leaning towards perfect, intervals, things which aren't going to clash and muddy up the tonal mix, right? If you are playing something with a third in it or a sixth, generally, it's just those two notes, right? You're just playing the... See, not much fight. If I add in the root in there, fight all day. Let the bass player or someone else do that, right? Conversely, the opposite is true. If you're in a band where you're trying to make something jazzy, make something more colorful, of like a Rage Against the Machine song or a Metallica song, something like that, you have to look at the overall tonal harmony and say, okay, yeah, they're playing all power chords because that's where the ass is with that sound, right? They want that big. But you got to add in thirds, sevenths, sixths, ninths, whatever, to make it sound how you want it to sound. And you're going to do that, obviously. The more options you'll have, obviously, is the cleaner you go. I know I didn't say that very well, but you can't play more notes with a distorted sound. You have to do less. And the opposite is true. You have to play with a cleaner sound when you're doing more complex voicings. So I'll leave you with a prime example, one key takeaway for you to practice. If you play in heavier bands, and you're either the only guitar player or the second guitar player, and you're covering something that has major and minor thirds in it, you're covering something that isn't a metal tune, but you want a bigger sound. You don't want to lose that punch, that power. Check out this chord. This is the biggest 6-string chord you can play without substantial note bleed, with heavy, heavy distortion. And that's your basic pattern 2 shape, so like a D power chord, D and A. Throw your 5th in the bass, double your root on the 4th string, play your bar against your first string, and instead of playing a third, let it just bar across and sus that 2. So whether it's a major or a minor chord, you can fill up the whole mix. And you can play with as much distortion as you want because you still get that perfect interval on the first 2 strings, and that 9 just creates a little bit of color, and for a second it wants to fight, but then it just settles right in there. Give it a shot. Just remember, arrangements, parts, and tone are all the same animal.